I needed your powers for the pool.
For the what?
Years of searching and refining, finding the right powers that can coexist in one body without ripping it apart.
Over the span of 2 decades that the X-Men have appeared on the big screen, the franchise has gone through quite the roller coaster in terms of quality. They've had some very high highs, they've had some very low lows, sometimes even right back to back. But as for the point of absolute zero, that seems to be universally attributed to the arguable champion of bad X-Men movies, 2009's X-Men Origins Wolverine. And I get why that is. If you want to point out all the individual not-so-great things about this movie, you could probably go on for hours and hours. The CGI at times can look straight up ridiculous. The characters are handled in this weird disposable way where they pop in out of nowhere and then pop out just as suddenly. And overall, like was the case with Revenge of the Fallen, this movie was made during the writer's strike of 2008, so you kinda know what to expect.
You can't stop him, even with that. He'll heal.
His brain may heal, but his memories won't grow back.
Okay. But if I were to look past all the individual crappinesses and instead focus on the core main problem that serves as the source of the crappiness, I would say that core main problem is this. Well, not this one thing alone specifically, but more so what it represents. See, you know how in this movie this evil government guy Stryker is extracting powers from different mutants and combining them all into Wade Wilson as this sort of pool of the dead to create the one and only this thing? Well, the movie itself is exactly like that. It's a combination of all these very different movies and stories that pool together to create this despicable, disgusting monstrosity unable to be loved even by its own mother. Essentially, I'd argue that this movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine, is actually 3 movies. It's a revenge story where Logan goes after the man who killed the love of his life. It's a Wolverine origin story where Logan discovers his powers and tries to cope with them and what they mean along with his brother. And it's also an X-Men movie about Logan shutting down the evil government who's been hunting mutants. All of these wildly different movies are forcibly combined together in such a messy, incompatible way that they end up sabotaging and eating away at each other to make sure that none of them work whatsoever. And so, let's take a look at that. Let's go over each of these 3 movies and see how they are always destroyed by the 2 others. Let's see why you shouldn't be making 3 movies in one. The first movie we have here is an emotion-packed, hatred-driven revenge story. Basically, Logan has settled down in Canada where he now lives as a humble lumberjack with the love of his life, the super cute school teacher. But one day things go sour when the man Logan once called his brother shows up to create a job opening at the school. And with the love of our life taken from us, we set out on a journey of wrath to get revenge on her killer at any price. The launching pad into this movie is very much like in Bourne Supremacy, for example, which we talked about in that villain introduction video, and it could actually be really great, if not for a couple tiny issues. Firstly, the relationship Logan has with the school teacher altogether is never established in a way that we would care about it or her. See, for the first 20 minutes of runtime, she doesn't even exist. The very beginning is all about the origin story of Logan discovering his powers and the relationship he has with his brother, after which we then move on to the X-Men government team-up stuff with Stryker. It's not until 20 minutes in when we get this 6-year time jump informing us that Logan has settled down in Canada, where the school teacher then literally appears before our eyes.
Why are you up so early?
Who are you? Where the hell am I?
All the moments and situations that would generate emotional value into this relationship and the school teacher as a character, we never see any of that. We never see where and how Logan meets her. We never see how she finds out about his abilities and how that makes her feel and react. We never get to know her through Logan getting to know her, because we've been too busy with these other movies. And before we have time to even begin getting to know her now, bam, a couple scenes in, she's already dead. And so now we have this hatred-based revenge story where we genuinely feel nothing towards the person we're setting out to get hatred-based revenge for. I mean, we know and care more about the person we're setting out to get revenge on, which at the beginning of a story like this is basically the wrong way around. And the further we go, the worse it gets. Initially, the movie does stick to this story pretty well. We have Stryker come in, but only to give Logan adamantium so that he can successfully kill his brother, keeping the focus on the revenge angle. But once we get that adamantium, the movie then suddenly begins slipping in all this X-Men evil government stuff again and seems to want to make us forget about the whole revenge story altogether.
We taking him to the island?
The island? No. Bonding works. We'll use his DNA for the 11. Erase his memory.
I think he heard you.
All of a sudden, the focus shifts onto the X-Men movie where Stryker is doing these mysterious tests on mutants and needs Logan for it for some reason, forcing Logan and us on a journey of escape in a way